Hello and welcome to our English news coming to you from Canal Algérie. First, the top stories of the news. The national football team progresses to the final stage of the Shine contest after defeating Gambia in Annaba Stadium. The French MPs visiting Algeria as part of commemorating May the 8th massacres urged the necessity to recognize this crime by their country. A prime example of France's dark history in Algeria, the Algerian deportees to Saint de Marguerite Island, most of them perished in jails. And UN experts call the military junta in Mali to allow political parties to resume their activities and return to the constitutional legitimacy. Hello and welcome to our news. First, in the news, the national football team progressed to the final stage of the Shan contest after beating Gambia with 3-0 in a game held in Annaba Stadium. The goals were scored by Mizien and Bulbina, worth recalling that the away match ended in a goalless draw. All the best for the national squad playing in the upcoming Chan in Group 3.
هاي فرصة او الهدف الثاني في شوف هاي كرة ممتازة ما فيش وضع التسديد نعم ممتازة في العمق الخروج الحارس الانتظار والبيشنات ومباشرة في الشباك هدفان مقابل 0.
التغييرات
نعم هاي كرة بولبينا يدخل منطقة العملية باليسرى والهدف الثالث قلت الحفل سينتهي بالكرة بأول لمسة بأكثر فعالية بأكثر من أول وهلة تصنع الفارق.
Congratulations to our national team. In another story and in a significant moment, a delegation of French MPs visited the National Mujahid Museum on the occasion of the commemoration of May the 8th massacres, a visit that concluded in a recognition of crimes committed by the colonial forces at that time against the Algerian people, reported by Yassinia Hassini, taken up by Melissa Kabash.
Alongside the activities organized to commemorate the massacres of May 8, 1945, the 80th anniversary was also commemorated by a delegation of French MPs. In a powerful moment of remembrance, the French delegation visited the National Mujahid Museum, where pictures stated more than words can do, an opportunity to witness the true nature of the French colonialism, a brutal machinery of oppression and barbarism that cost the Algerian people immeasurable price in blood and tears.
I am very moved to be here to share this historic moment, an important moment for both countries, as it is the history of both France and Algeria. It is worth noting that we had Algerians who contributed to France's liberation on May 8, 1945.
Step by step, the French delegation journeyed through the unvarnished history, from the early sparks of popular resistance against colonial rule to the triumph that hard-won victory. Each exhibited piece, each photograph, each document served as a reminder of the brutal colonial era. The visit became a focal point for calls to recognize the savage crimes committed on May 8th, as the parliamentarian admitted that the barbaric acts committed against the Algerian people that day was not a reaction, but rather a crime against a people who sought freedom.
I think that today it is very important to recognize these massacres committed in 1945. Today we pay great homage to those who died that day. We are here to show our solidarity and accompany the Algerian people during this difficult journey, namely the commemoration of May 8, 1945. I have a lot of hope. We only need to finalize this memory work, and this is what we are doing here during our visit.
Finaliser ce travail de mémoire. Et c'est ce que nous faisons, par exemple, ici, en venant dans ce musée très impressionnant.
L'objectif, c'est vraiment de faire...
The main goal is to go back to the past and talk about our history, because by knowing our history of both France and Algeria, we can reconnect ties.
C'est qu'on pourra avancer et recréer du lien entre les deux rives.
A wreath of flower was laid at the end, reflecting the awareness gained this day regarding the enduring struggle for recognition and historic truth, a truth not read nor studied, but profoundly lived. The French MPs toured the various facilities of the Jama al-Jazair, Algeria's largest mosque. They reportedly admired its spiritual significance, a national religious landmark rooted in the values of tolerance, moderation, and the rejection of extremism. The delegation received detailed explanation about the mosque's characteristics and its impressive architecture, later taken in a panoramic view of Algiers and its enchanting bay from the minaret.
On the same occasion, several activities were held across the country, giving the opportunity for the participants to urge France to recognize its crimes and to allow researchers to have access to archives.
La ville de Martigues a donc déposé une plaque à l'arbre du souvenir.
The city of Martigues has established a plaque at the level of the Tree of Memories so as to not forget the massacres of May 8, 1945 in Algeria. The city of Martigues recognizes these massacres. It is important now for France to recognize these massacres as colonial massacres committed by the French police, to allow people to have access to the archives of this period, to organize a national day in France to recall these events of Stif Galma and Kharata, and the possibility to introduce these massacres alongside other war crimes into school curricula. It's been 80 years now, and we're putting forward these demands to have a faithful memory and establish a dialogue between the two countries for a complete national memory, and not one that has been amputated from its darkness, which is the colonial period in Algeria.
Vive une mémoire qui ne soit pas amputée, une mémoire nationale, qui ne soit pas amputée d'une partie de son histoire, cette partie-là plus sombre, qui est celle de la période coloniale en Algérie.
Œuvrons ensemble à la reconnaissance de ces crimes d'État.
Let's work together to recognize these state crimes, these crimes against humanity, these massacres that claimed around 45,000 Algerians, perpetrated by the armed forces under the form of torture and execution or enforced disappearance. The recognition of these crimes by the French state is a must to all those who suffered from this tragedy due to racist colonial orders. You are all ambassadors. We must preserve our heritage. We urge President Macron to recognize the massacres of Kharata, the 147 nuclear tests made in Algeria. We call on him to come and clear those areas. And we mustn't forget the massacres of October 17, 1961 and the February 8th strike.
La grève de 8 mai, la grève, pardon, de 8 février. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on demande? On demande une reconnaissance.
Vivid testimonies indeed. French colonization remains one of the darkest chapters in history, marked by violence, torture and forced deportations. On the Île Sainte-Marguerite, Muslim cemeteries hold the remains of many Algerian resistance fighters who died in captivity. Among the most tragic records, infants who perished in the colonial prisons. Ra'af Hamoush and Manal Mafa with more details.
Off the coast of mainland France, in the wooded hills of Île Sainte-Marguerite, lies a small forgotten Muslim cemetery.
Elles sont anonymes dans la tradition musulmane.
In Muslim traditions, some cultural burial practices remain traceable. A larger stone may indicate the head, and the body is often positioned facing the east.
Parfois, une pierre plus importante va marquer l'emplacement de la tête.
Buried here are men exiled from Algeria, fighters who stood with Emir Abdelkader against French colonization. Seen as powerful symbols of resistance, they were torn from their homeland in 1842 and imprisoned far from home, another colonial crime that will forever stain France's history.
Les premiers prisonniers arrivent ici.
The first prisoners were sent here as a precaution. People the French army deemed dangerous were arrested and detained on the island. Among them, tribal leaders, peasants, and so-called Arab political prisoners. Their only crime was resisting occupation, one of many colonial injustices that still stain France's legacy. On Île Sainte-Marguerite, among the Algerians who died in exile, some were infants born in prison or brought in their mother's arms, never to see their homeland. Stripped of identity, they were recorded only as numbers.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
On a plus de 300 individus qui sont condamnés à la peine de la...
Over 300 people, men, women and children, were condemned to deportation on Île Sainte-Marguerite. Their presence reflects both suffering and resilience, as they endured harsh living conditions and tried to survive daily life in captivity.
Et des conditions terribles liées aussi au déracinement.
Most of them were farmers, imams or simple merchants. After the 1871 Sheikh al-Muqrani revolt, France exiled thousands more to distant colonies like New Caledonia and Guyana. Many died in forced labor camps, buried without names. Today, families and historians seek to restore their memory and demand justice for the forgotten.
Patrick Tacita, in charge of the exterior affairs of the National Alliance, had this to say regarding the May massacres. Let's have a listen to him.
As former French colonies, we always ask the question, who really fought the war? Did the French really fight it? Who actually faced the Germans? Because during the Normandy landings, there were barely 200 French nationals among all the troops that arrived in Normandy. So we asked ourselves, who were their defenders? Who were the French who resisted? Overall, we can say that the majority of the French supported the Nazi regime. The people who resisted the Nazis were from North Africa, the Caribbean, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Madagascar, Senegal, and others. They were the ones who resisted the Germans. So today we clearly see that there is a falsification of history. There are people who claim that the French army or the French people bravely fought against the Germans. Apart from the communists, the communist commandos, and some Republicans, the majority of people were in agreement with Germany, and today they want to lecture us about anti-Semitism. Not at all. The French have always been on the side of the oppressor.
You're still watching Canal Algérie. Coming up in our news, the Algerian artist Rachid Koreishi displays Algiers' beauties in New York to the great joy of visitors eager to discover the Algerian rich patrimony. French Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau faces backlash over controversial measures, including the dissolution of Urgence Palestine and the suspension of Police Watch, raising concerns among civil liberties. Amira Safta and Manal Mafa with more.
The suspension of Urgence Palestine and Police Watch without clear legal basis has sparked alarm. Non-governmental organizations accuse the French government of trying to silence the dissenting voices.
La jeune garde dérange, et a raison. Voici son bilan, fruit d'un travail...
Neo-Nazi spaces shut down in Lille, Strasbourg and Lyon, and a far-right seat flipped in Vosges. Meanwhile, as a genocide unfolds, the government moves to dissolve Palestine Vaincra, silencing voices for justice and easing a people. What else can that be called?
Massacrer, effacer, détruire toute existence politique et humaine d'un peuple, ça s'appelle comment?
For the La France Debout party, this marks an unprecedented act of political brutality in service of radicalized rights.
Retailleau dit qu'il existe des Français de papier, ou quand M.
Retailleau says that there are paper citizens. He also claims part of the population in France is regressing to its ethnic origins. What does that mean, regressing to ethnic origins? Those are his words, not mine. That is racism. This is no longer a mere restriction of freedoms. It is soft political repression, warns a rights advocate. Protests have broken out across several French cities as concerns grow that the Republic is losing its way.
And from France to our continent in Mali, popular turmoil is rising against the practices of the junta and is even gaining international momentum after UN experts called on the coup leaders to cancel the decree suspending the activities of political parties and associations in the country. Laetitia Tqawi and Fouzia Tej go into details on the current situation in Mali.
When a power-hungry military junta oversteps its authority and erodes the foundations of democracy, public outrage surges into the streets. The unrest eventually echoes on the international stage, drawing condemnation from global institutions like the UN. These bodies denounce the military suppression of free expression and its blatant disregard for the people's will. We are protected because we respect the law, but as soon as laws are stepped on, the country will turn into a jungle. When Malian democracy is under threat, the whole country is under threat. The streets are now rising against those who turned on the constitution. Goïta stepped all red lines. The response came fiercely, reaching even the presidential palace that he entered without permission. Goïta and his regime are here since 2021. We're in 2025. After all these years, what changed in Mali? What did he bring on the economic, security, or social levels? The junta did not stop destroying Mali economically and socially. It went further in its arrogance, daring to usurp the authority of the people and confiscate their voice in political life.
Sealing the African continent in Morocco as the pockets of the Makhzen elite and corruption networks swell with stolen public funds, the average citizen is left struggling, caught between meager wages and relentless pressure of the daily life. Melissa Lila Balaman and Hafida Aitzdouk with the details.
The Moroccan people are living in misery, held hostage by widespread corruption, entrenched in all state institutions, with the blessing and protection of the Makhzen. While corruption eats away at the foundations of the country, Moroccan voices are silenced and repressed for simply demanding their right to a decent life. We fought hunger. They've exhausted us in this country. We want the law so we can live with dignity. We are not truly living, we're barely surviving. Over 11 billions have been looted from the Social Security Fund, public assets and the Moroccan people's money. A third has gone into the pockets of the king's entourage and corruption networks, with the majority benefiting the Zionist entity. We see public funds being embezzled everywhere, and what's hidden is even worse. We see the theft of land belonging to the people, while poor, hard-working citizens who protest corruption are arrested and slapped with pre-made charges. Corruption and normalization are two faces of the same regime. A regime that, with its right hand, exploits Moroccan resources to gain favor, and with its left, grovels before the Zionist entity, racing to sell off Morocco to occupying powers.
Let's delve now into the realm of art. At Icon Gallery, Rashid Qureshi presents The Night of Destiny, blending sacred calligraphy, Sufi symbolism and traditional craftsmanship. The artist explores identity, spirituality and cultural memory through ceramics and textiles. Melissa Lila Balaman and Mariam Damis.
At the Icon Gallery, Rashid Qureshi unveils The Night of Destiny, an exhibition inspired by Laylat al-Qadr, the holiest night in the Islamic calendar. Through ceramics and textiles, the artist delves into Sufi spirituality and the role of art in our societies.
Seeing Rashid's work in New York is really inspiring to me because, for example, in this piece I noticed how it has all of the different names and attributes of God, which ties really well into the name of the exhibition, The Night of Destiny, because that's a night for introspection, and I feel like the names of God, looking at that, makes me think deeply about my own character in life.
I've come to New York to see the wonderful works of Rashid Qureshi here at Icon Gallery. We have 7 applique tapestry that were made in Cairo, and Rashid Qureshi really is a genius.
You can really see the artist's hand in the calligraphy on this work. All of the different movement and all of the different formations of the lines is just beautiful.
Rashid Qureshi draws inspiration from Cairo's master artisans to create embroidered wall hangings using traditional techniques, a dialogue between heritage, ancestral craftsmanship, and contemporary expression.
Ce projet d'exposition à New York a eu lieu le 24 avril dernier.
This exhibition project in New York, which took place on April 24th, is very meaningful to me as it represents 6 years of work. The large textiles were crafted by artisans from Cairo's Souq al-Khayamiyya, the market where tents are made, a tradition dating back to the pharaohs. At that time, only male priests created these pieces. After the pharaoh's body was prepared for the sarcophagus, through preservation rituals, a priest on each side would sew symbolic textiles onto others, creating signs to guide the king into the afterlife.
Et aux Angouins, travailler à tous les éléments dont ils devaient conserver le plus longtemps possible le corps de ce grand roi.
His jars of cloth and ama blend Mediterranean and North African influences. Created between Barcelona and Algeria, these works explore cultural exchanges, traces of the past, and the many layers of identity.
And from New York to Algiers, to wrap up our news tomorrow, another day, other news. Keep tuning to our channel, and bye-bye for now.